Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Dr. Gene Dorio with my co-host, Barbara Cochran, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We're talking about bags and stress and a whole bunch of things with Dr. Thomas Polucki. And, I think we were really more interested in stress and the role that it plays. And, there's physical stress and there's emotional stress. And, when you start to have physical stress, you then can develop the other side of it, the emotional stress,
Absolutely.
Because your quality of life across the board is then affected.
Yeah, we look at actually three kinds of stress. The two that you mentioned are the most obvious ones. When you mention stress in casual conversation, people immediately consider the emotional stress. They're not happy with their relationship. They're not happy with their occupation. They're not happy with their family. They're not happy with some area of their life. And that's what the overwhelming majority of people consider stress to be. And then if you talk to certain people under certain conditions, they'll factor in things like chemical stresses, maybe something in their environment, something that is causing them to sneeze a lot, something that is upsetting their digestive system, whether it be in the air or the food or the water. There are chemical stresses that are working on us all the time. And obviously the biggest invisible stress that we all deal with constantly is gravity. Gravity itself is a form of repetitive stress injury. Over time, it wears out weight-bearing joints, especially when things are not lined up as effectively as possible. And that's where I come in as far as the physical stress, but everything else ties into it. The way that your body is able to adapt, because here's the rub. Stress is not bad. Stress is not good.
No.
Stress is just stress. And the same physical, chemical, or emotional stress can make somebody stronger or weaker. The exact same thing in the exact same person at any given time. The key is, how can we shift the occasion from stress doing damage to stress doing good? And one of the biggest things that I found that I'm able to do for my patients is take the mechanical stress out of the internal workings of the body. Now that's what did he just say? So I've worked on this for so many years and learned so many 10-syllable words that are confusing even to the researchers, that I needed to come up with something that makes sense to people. Because it is in desperate need and people just aren't aware of it. They never would consider chiropractic plays a factor in sleep disorders or allergies or digestive issues or emotional or memory problems or any of these things. Even though, yes, I can spend 5 hours on PubMed and pull up enough studies that will back my position on this, nobody's going to do that. Nobody besides me is even looking in those directions. So what makes sense to most people? And instead of getting into more medical jargon, I just came up with the acronym of OOPSI. Because it clears up just about every misconception as far as I'm concerned about what chiropractic is and the value of chiropractic.
OOPSI.
So what is OOPSI? It's O for out, O for of, P for postural, C for compensation. So the big words there are postural and compensation. Most people know what posture is. It's whether you're standing up straight or not. And compensation means, are you able to adapt to different stresses? So are you standing up straight and most functional under different circumstances, or is something interfering with that? Is something not quite lined up properly so that your head starts tilting forward and it throws everything else out of balance? And then there's a chain reaction, and we're not just talking mechanically. there are chemical reactions. There's an inflammatory process that starts in the area of irritation and spreads throughout the entire body, affecting not just the weight-bearing joints, but now affecting all of the connective tissues and even your digestion and even your brain. And then there's the because of the physical stress constantly working on you, and now the inflammatory component, the hormones get called into play, and you now are dealing with a cortisol imbalance, because if there's inflammation, you have to start producing more cortisol. And if you start producing more cortisol, which is a master hormone, most people know about things like estrogen and testosterone and maybe insulin if you have a problem with regulating blood sugar. They are all under the rule of cortisol. As soon as cortisol starts coming into play, all of those other ones that you do know about are under its domain, and so is thyroid as well. There are so many people out there now taking thyroid because their numbers weren't right that really have an adrenal issue, and it's got nothing to do with their thyroid at all.
Very interesting.
So all of these factors, I'm not saying this is a panacea, that this will cure everything under the sun. I am saying that very few people look at the connections. Very few people dig under the most obvious surface symptoms to find out what are contributing factors and why are the protocols not working as effectively as possible. Why are we having to use multiple drugs on this person in order to get some kind of relief when any one of these symptoms is an entity of itself? Well, the answer is maybe because you're not digging deep enough, maybe because you're not looking at the underlying causes that aren't so obvious, that are throwing the whole system into an imbalance, and then just by adding more chemistry to that situation is rarely of benefit to the patient.
Whoa.
And that all starts with an oopsie.
An oopsie.
Out of postural compensation. And you can look at it. If you look at the senior population and you see a person walking down the street and their chin is up and their shoulders are back and they're gliding down the street, I don't care what age they are, they're going to be, I guarantee they are going to have the fewest amount of drugs in their medicine cabinet. On the other hand, you look at somebody who is hunched over, has that head hanging way out in front of their body, and they're just inching along step by step, usually with a walker or something. I guarantee their medicine cabinet is overflowing.
Boy, that latter one sounds like me.
That's not.
No, you don't walk.
Check my
you
medicine.
don't. You don't
Check
use
my
a
medicine
walker.
chest.
You don't walk with your head down. But I have experience with the walker, and all kinds of things come into play with it. And when Russ and I go out, he gets in the car, I take the walker to the back of the car, and I use my left hand to hold on to that little loop, and I hoist it up and put it in the back of the car. Now, so many things are coming into play there with my stress, not only emotionally, but physically.
Sure.
But yet, we're going someplace, he's out, he's doing something. That's a stress release. But at the same time, I'm still contorting my body, getting this machine
Right.
up into the back of the car. But I don't know how else to do it.
Right.
That would be worse on me.
Right.
Because I've tried it several ways.
Sure.
It's an unruly piece of machinery,
Yeah.
but it does the job.
Right.
And I've finally figured out how to do it, to put it up there without really hurting myself, although I'm sure I do, because I think that's where my neck comes into play.
Sure.
And my back.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm seeing you.
Right. Well, it's at some point you're going to get an oopsie. You are going to do something that tweaks you, And this is unavoidable. The answer, as far as I'm concerned, is find somebody who can reduce the stress, the mechanical stress on the weight-bearing joint, which doesn't require any more drugs, which doesn't require surgery, which doesn't require extensive physical therapy or bracing or rehabilitation, but just take the pressure off in a pretty instant and measurable way and see how you respond to that. One of the things that we check in our office is balance and coordination on every single visit. And this is a big factor for seniors. If your balance is compromised, if your coordination is compromised, and then stack on top of that, you're on high blood pressure medication, which many seniors are, you're kind of an accident waiting to happen, because all it takes is getting up from a chair, already being off balance a little bit in the first place, and then not having blood flow to your brain, and you're on the ground before you know it, and it can go pretty bad from that point forward for a lot of people.
But a lot of people can avoid, I think, our seniors especially, avoid some of these problems. But it's inculcated in them to follow the directions of their physicians, which is give a lot of medication, and that in itself becomes a huge problem.
Sure.
But we were over the weekend in San Diego at a brain conference, and
Was Bredesen there?
I didn't see. There were 30,000 brains there, so
Whoa.
pretty packed.
No, he would have been a speaker.
Yeah. There were so many, and I was just trying to find my area there, and it's still tomorrow's the last day. But one of the things I do know, and that the brain plays a big role in our life. And these are researchers mostly. The application isn't real high there, but I do think that exercise does play a role for our seniors.
Absolutely.
And when I visit my seniors at home, one of the biggest problems is they don't exercise.
Right.
And it really only takes a few minutes of exercise that allows you to make it through the day, the week, the month. And I think that these exercises that what I saw down there and what I've seen before and know what is needed, they can be done. And it can be done in 10 to 15 minutes every day, if you can believe that. But people just don't do that. And, for the most part, many of our seniors don't eat right either.
Absolutely.
It's sometimes fast food out of the can, microwave it, and it doesn't work. And I've learned that there's so many poisons that we have in our food supply right now that it's going to affect how you do in the long run, and it's definitely a contributing factor to your balance and your coordination in the long run. So, and then the last thing, of course, is your two things. One is the balance of your medication, because so many people are on diabetic medication, high blood pressure medication, and it's refill it. So your doctor refill it. And sometimes if you can monitor your sugar, you can monitor your oxygen, you can monitor your blood pressure, and you can write these things down and tell your doctor, hey, maybe my blood pressure is getting too low. Maybe that's why I got dizzy. And you can get that balance back in your medicine chest, and not end up becoming a total invalid and falling. Right. And then of course mentally there's the problem that we all have as we get older. And you talk, Barbara, about getting the walker into the car, but for your husband, I know that for him, it's a dignity thing. Now he has to use a walker. He didn't have to use a walker a few years ago. Now he has to use a walker. So when we have balance of mind, we have balance of medication, we watch our diet, and we do exercise, we can push these problems of balance and coordination into the background so we can maintain it and not have those falls.
Well, I have a problem with balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten worse as I've gotten older.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go to the gym, I work on these balance problems with, the ball, and then, of course, standing and lifting a leg up and holding it, or move it to the side or up. And those are very, very hard things to do. And I know when I get up out of my easy chair at home, I have to hold on to both sides.
Even after doing all those exercises.
Absolutely.
You're still out of balance. And I think that says a lot, because I've noticed now that I'm on Medicare, I've noticed also these little things happen. Your vision, your hearing, your balance, and all these things are going on, and you're going, what the heck is this? But it's, yeah, you're getting older, and I look in the mirror, yeah, I'm getting older. But, it's just something that we have to face. And yes, it's a dignity problem and a few other things thrown in there. It's not fun.
No, it isn't. And I think to myself, Barbara, what are you doing? Get up. And then I'll push myself up and I'll think, uh-oh, I got up too quick.
Mm-hmm.
Then I start really losing balance and I have to sit back down. So I've learned not to do that, to ease myself up gently, even though I have to use both sides of the chair. I'm thinking, I used to just pop up and away I'd go. But as you get older, all kinds of things happen. And I think balance is it's a key element as we get older.
And
because like you were saying, Dr. Polucki, that's what causes falls.
Yeah.
But it's unavoidable, I think, that, and you just have to work on it to try to make it better so you don't fall. I mean, I think our listeners are sitting there right now and putting a check mark by balance and saying, yeah, that's me. But, what do? You just don't want to, you don't want to fall. But I think, even, we should have for our seniors falling exercises. We should take them over to some of these gymnastic places that has the pit that has all these sponges in it. And we should, put our seniors and myself at the edge of this and then push me in so I can learn how to fall.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to slide into a base. I had to learn how to stretch my body out to catch a ball. And, they had pits and places to do that so that I could learn how to stay coordinated and keep my eye on the ball. Now, it's keeping my eye on my foot in front of me. And, things are going to happen. I know that. But if our seniors can learn how to fall, they can probably protect themselves from getting hurt badly, hitting their head, breaking their hip, things like that. They can relax themselves and be in a position, here I go. And lots of times it is like timber, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And you're going. And that's what all my patients are. I've been with patients at home, at their homes, where they go, here I go, and I'll be running over to try to catch them. Sometimes I do, but many times they right onto the ground. But, many of those who do it figure out how to fall. I just don't want them to learn how to fall on a hard, cement or on a hardwood floor, because then they're going to break something.
Yeah. I'm been studying martial arts on and off for nearly 30 years. In the first several years that any good martial arts instructor is going to make sure you know how to do is fall properly. Because outside of falling, which everybody does, martial arts is kind of a specialty. So we learn how to fall from every conceivable angle and learn how the body mechanics work properly. This is really important stuff.
So why can't we teach our seniors to fall?
Anybody
have a pit out there with sponge in it that would like to contribute?
Mile High. They're all tramps over that Mile High.
That's true.
What's that?
It's like a bouncy gym kind of thing.
Mile High.
Like trampolines? Or?
Yeah.
But do they have a pit that you can fall in?
You can do that. I think that would be an excellent thing, that they should offer a program for seniors. And
Mile High, it's called?
I believe so. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But,
there's one up
think
in
about this,
Palmdale.
what's going to stop them?
Liability.
Can you believe that?
It's interesting.
Well, they have to have the kids sign a waiver, so they have the seniors sign a waiver too.
I think it'd be just great for our seniors to have that experience, and then to figure out that 10-minute exercise, 10 to 15-minute exercises every day that loosens up every joint and gets everything going.
My concern is not whether we could find a facility that would do it. My concern is the first question that many seniors ask when they can get past the fact that I'm a chiropractor. The second question is Medicare going to cover this? Or is my insurance going to cover this? So that is the forefront of most seniors' concerns, because they may be on a fixed income and they have a big chunk of whatever they're making being put into the system for their coverage. They don't want to come out of pocket for much, or they can't. And I don't know that Medicare would cover something like that.
Well, why don't we discuss this after the break? We're speaking with Dr. Thomas Polucki on various topics. But I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we're speaking with Dr. Thomas Polucki, and we've been talking about various things. Stress, falling, being seniors, and just being seniors helps us when we fall.
That's right. And during the
Or
break,
because-
we talked about tuck and roll.
Well, that's true.
And I think our seniors understand that. I mean, we've done that for years. Barbara was telling us how she learned how to tuck and roll on a motorcycle. And can you see Barbara?
Oh, yes, and I still ride them now.
Wow. And tuck and roll if you need to. You're ready.
Well, I think we need to get away from my tucking and rolling, falling off motorcycles,
Yeah.
because I don't fall
Back
anymore.
to oopsie.
Oopsie. There we are.
Oopsie.
OOPCE.
No.
OOP.
OOP.
OO. Out of postural compensation.
O.
And the big words there are
OOPC.
postural compensation, and that's the only the problem that people will stumble on. Most people know what posture is, what good posture. You say, watch your posture, and people tend to straighten up. They raise their head and pull their shoulders back and tuck their tail, and that is proper posture. The fact that you actually have to make a move means that you are chronically out of postural compensation. If that is not your natural state, then there's a reason for it. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because you are out of postural compensation. And there are reasons for it. And a lot of the things that people think are the answer for getting back into postural compensation aren't. Because think of it this way. One of the main reasons that you get out of postural compensation is there is a source of irritation in the mechanism that maintains postural compensation. So, think of it as a thorn. If you're getting poked in the back of your neck and you can't pluck that thorn out, the natural response is to get away from it. To try to either move forward, move to the side. And this is absolutely what your brain is processing 24/7 without you ever having to think about it at all.
Interesting.
So posture is an autonomic response, essentially. It is automated. You don't think about your posture. In fact, when you do have to think about your posture and you have to recruit skeletal muscle to start pulling yourself into a different posture, not only are you not doing it effectively the way the body is made to do it automatically on its own, but you may also be driving that thorn even deeper. If you're trying to get away from a thorn and all you do is say, no, I'm going to exercise this away, I'm going to stand up straight, I'm going to force good posture in, you're leaning into that thorn. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It
So
absolutely
the
does.
key to getting into postural compensation is plucking the thorn. And in medicine, very few people are interested in this. But those who are use things like acupuncture to mediate the inflammation. There are many medical doctors who will do injections into the facets, the joints of the spine, using various substances to try to get the inflammation out of the joints of the spine so that people can stand up straight again. My approach to it is find out imagine that every joint in your body is like the tooth on a gear that has to line up perfectly with the tooth on it's made the other gear that it interacts with. And if either of those gears are slightly off axis, the machinery doesn't glide so smoothly. And as far as I'm concerned, just adding more lubrication to that is not a long-term answer. It may give some short-term results. You may be able to take anti-inflammatories. You may be able to get a steroidal injection. You may be able to do something to knock down the inflammation. But if you don't line up those gears, there's always going to be a mechanical problem there, and it's going to eventually cause you some other problems as well. So the answer to going from out of postural compensation to back in, as far as I can tell, investing the past 25 years into this, is you've got to line up those gears. And what does that beautifully is a no twist, no crack spinal adjustment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because what I have found is the kind of chiropractic that most people think about, where they are twisted and they are cracked on every time that they go in, typically does not, from my experience, line up those gears properly. It has to be done very carefully.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And if you have a certain posture that is not reared back, head up, if you do that, then you're going into that thorn.
You could be creating more problems for yourself.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And most people would not even think about that.
Nope.
Stand up straight, and they automatically put their shoulders back. And if that isn't what they have normally been doing, then that likely could cause some problems.
Every day I get a text from my mom that says, stand up straight. That's been going on for years. But if people want to get this knowledge that you have, though, Dr. Polucki, how can they get a hold of you?
Probably for this audience, the best thing is to give the office a call, 661-753-9340. For the more computer savvy, it is drpolucki.com. And you can certainly Google me. I have 4 times the number of 5-star Google reviews as pretty much anybody else who deals with this stuff.
When our seniors are looking for better health, the important part we talked about was exercise, it's diet, it's watching your medicines and keeping a good mental balance. But, there are added things that one can do to assure and make sure that they're going to be okay. And, advice, and, we try to, on the senior hour, try to bring this to the attention of our seniors. And, you've been a gold mine of information for us.
Thank you.
So if you want to get a hold of Dr. Polucki, again, it's 753-9340. That's 753-9340. Dr. Thomas Polucki, thank you for being on the show today.
Always
you
a
give
pleasure.
confidence back to those in the medical profession, treating people with compassion and hope and caring. We appreciate that here in Santa Clarita. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are sponsored by Advanced Audiology and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.